Hi guys, today we're gonna read the book Disney Pixar Monster Inc. The Magical Stories. All children know that there are monsters lurking inside their bedroom cupboards who come out to scare them at night. What they don't know is that the mothers are just doing their job. They are collecting children's screams to provide the power for their monster world. Some of the scariest monsters work for Mr. Waternoose, president of Monster Incorporated, the largest scream processing factory in the world. James P. Sullivan, the number one scarier Monster Inc., and his assistant Mike Wazowski always collect the most scream. Every morning, Mike puts Sully through vicious scares top to keep him informed. One beautiful morning, since there was a scream shortage, Mike and Sully left the car at home and walked to Monstropolis to work. Mike went to see Rod, the silk-like monster dispatcher at Monster Inc. She scolded him for forgetting to file his paperwork, and he made his way up to the locker room to get ready for work. Randall, who was not a very nice monster, was already there. He wanted to beat Sully and become tough scarier. May the best monster win, said Sully cheerfully. I plan to, said Randall spitefully. Mike hurried to the scare floor with the other assistants and set about ordering up the wardrobe doors for that day, which were used to enter the human world. Then the scarers entered the scare floor. It was time for business. The monster raced in and out of children's rooms, scaring kids and collecting screams. By the end of the day, Sully was top scarier once again. With work over, Mike went to meet his girlfriend Celia, the company's beautiful responsive. He was taking her to dinner to celebrate her birthday, but he'd forgotten to file his paperwork. Sully offered to do it for him and went back to the scare floor. He found a child's door left in its scaring station. While trying to investigate, he accidentally let a human girl into the monster world. After several failed attempts to return the toxic kid, Sully bunted her inside a Monster Inc. sport bag. She was just about to set off to find Mike on his date with Celia when Randall appeared acting very suspiciously. Sully hid with the girl until he was out of sight. Something strange was going on. Sully tracked Mike down and started explaining everything. But while they were distracted, the girl crawled out the back, scaring all the monsters in sushi restaurant. The child detective agency was alert, and before long, agents were swarming overhead in helicopters. In all confusion, Sully and Mike managed to grab the girl and escape. Back at their flat, the two monsters tried to keep the kid amused while they figured out a way to get back to her world. When Mike tripped and fell, the little girl giggled, making all the lights flash brightly then go out. This puzzled Sully. Her laughter seemed even more powerful than screams. When she grew tired, Sully tucked her in mud. He was beginning to realize that humans aren't toxic after all. The next morning, Sully decided it would be best to find and put the girl back to her door again. Dressing her in a homemade monster disguise, he and Mike took her to work with them. They had to be careful. The Monster Inc. lobby was crawling with CDA agents who had found the sport bag at the restaurant. They tried to act natural and somehow make it past Mr. Waternoose. While Mike went to find the key to the door, Sully and the girl played together in the changing room. "No!" she giggled, running off. Just as Mike returned to find Sully and Boo, as Sully had decided to call her, Randall and his assistants arrived. "Shh," whispered Sully as they hid inside Cube. "When I find whoever let that kid out," muttered Randall. "This is very bad," said Mike, as he and Sully just managed to get Boo on the scare floor without being seen. But once again, Boo escaped, and Sully rushed off to look for her. As Mike tried to apologize to Celia for ruining her evening, he noticed Randall lurking nearby. But it was too late. Randall had already overheard that Mike and Sully had been in the same restaurant as the child. "Where's the kid? It's here in the factory, isn't it?" he growled. Under threat, Mike had to admit everything. Randall offered to help return the kid. He told Mike to take her to the scare floor at lunchtime when it was empty, and he would make sure that Boo's door was ready. Sully and Mike eventually found Boo playing with some little monster in the company crèche. They took her back to the scare floor. Mike told Sully about Randall's plan, but Sully didn't trust Randall. He was growing fond of Boo and he didn't want anything to happen to her. Those things are very bad because Boo is the only human, a child, a girl, in the company of Monsters, Inc. Mike thought Sully was imagining things. He opened Boo's door and went into her room to prove everything was safe. He jumped up and down at the bed, pretending to be Boo. Suddenly, a box was thrown over him and he was trapped inside. Hiding with Boo, Sully watched as Randall left the room, carrying the box. The sketch-wing monster obviously didn't realize that he had captured Mike, not a kid. Sully and Boo followed them, but Randall had disappeared. Then Boo found a door which led to a secret laboratory. Randall strapped Mike to the terrible machines to exact screams from children. Sully secretly unplugged the machine and rescued Mike. They planned to find Mr. Waternoose, but as they were trying to explain to their boss what had happened, he grabbed Boo, opened the door, and pushed Mike and Sully through it. Waternoose wasn't on Randall's plan. Waternoose has banished them to the human world. Mike and Sully suddenly found themselves on a cold and snowy mountains. Before long, the two monsters bumped into a big white monster. It was the abominable snowman. When he told them about a nearby village, Sully had an idea. He made a sledge out of the pieces he found in the monster's cave. When Mike refused to go with him, Sully speeded down the monster mountain alone. Charging into a child's bedroom through their wardrobe door, Sully entered the monster's world and raced toward Randall's secret lab. He found Boo trapped to the machine. He ripped the machine apart and freed Boo. Randall turned invisible and attacked Sully, but Mike appeared just in time. He had followed Sully after all, bringing supplies of snowballs. He threw one at Randall, making him visible again. Running to the scare floor, Mike and Sully found Boo's door on the conveyor belt, but Randall was close behind. Randall grabbed to Boo and tried to loosen Sully's skirt so he would fall. But with Boo's help, Sully threw Randall out of the open door and quickly put it through the shredding machine so that he could never return. With a look of pride, Sully moved Boo up into the air and laughed. "You did it, Boo. You beat him." Now it was time to escape from Waternoose. "I'll kidnap 1,000 children before I let this company die," he gasped. But the CDA had heard everything. The agents arrested Waternoose, then announced the arrival of their boss, who turned out to be Roz. She had been working undercover for CDA all along. Roz gave Mike and Sully 5 minutes to say goodbye to Boo. Then she would be sent home and her door would be shredded so no monster could ever enter her room again. Sully tucked Boo up in her bed and Sally said goodbye. Later, when Sully explained to everyone how Boo's laughter created more power than screams, Monsters, Inc. was turned into a laughter factory. He was made the president and the company's profits soared. Sully still missed Boo. In fact, he was thinking about her when Mike arrived with a surprise for him. Mike had been busy plugging together all the tiny pieces of Boo's shredded door. Putting the final pieces in place, Sully walked into the room to find Boo waiting with a big smile. At last they were returned. Snake, goodbye. See you later.